Ça devrait casser ici, d'après moi.
Si je peux, moi perso, je vais essayer de me concentrer beaucoup sur le Nasdaq ce matin. Je vais essayer d'en acheter. Check en termes de moyenne mobile ici, là, honnêtement, c'est un beau spot d'achat de Nasdaq. Moi, comment personnellement je structurais ça une position comme le Nasdaq ici, c'est en deux slices, ok? T'as une slice numéro 1 que tu ouvres au fib 61 ici, puis t'as une slice numéro 2 que tu ouvres en bas, ici à 400. Fait que j'irais avec 50-50 en termes de 50-50 en termes de comment.
Tu rentres au prix actuel, là?
Ouais, ben oui, ben oui. Ouais, moi je vais rentrer 50% de ma position ici, puis un 50% plus bas. Si on descend pas plus bas, qu'est-ce que je vais faire? C'est que je vais essayer de rentrer après un 50% plus haut. Mais moi je suis rentré sur le Nasdaq ici. Ok.
Elle est morte. Et je pense toujours que l'or va nous faire une jambe haussière aujourd'hui, là. Je suis confiant dans le pattern. Le pattern est vraiment propre.
Ok, le Nasdaq ici, 50% de la position ouverte. Pourquoi? Aucune raison pourquoi la tech baisse en tant que telle. Marché encore bullish, sentiment de marché bullish, même affaire que d'habitude, blablabla. Rien qui a changé. Mais l'affaire, c'est que je sais juste pas si c'est là qu'on va arrêter ou ça va être en bas.
Fait que c'est pas le Mag 7, il faudrait qu'il respecte ce niveau ici, là.
On va voir. Mais en tant que tel, il n'y a pas de raison pourquoi le marché, pourquoi la tech devrait baisser. Oh, wow.
It's time for Jim and stop
Tiens.
trading.
Yeah, now I'm trying to distinguish between the companies that are making a lot of money and the companies that are just having some
USL,
revenues
ouais, il
and
doit
not
avoir une
making
raison,
money
c'est
at all.
garanti.
City takes Lamb Research from 175 to 190. They make a lot of the equipment that you need in order to be able to have high bandwidth memory, which is huge in the data center, and they're extremely profitable, and I think that's a great call. That I like. I just want to buy companies that are lucrative at this phase of the cycle. That's all.
Nothing wrong with that, I guess.
No, I just think that that's what. Look, Lamb is going to have orders as far as the eye can see. They can't make it up. No one thought that there would be this much demand for high bandwidth memory, and the Micron kind of thing. And I just say, okay, well, there's a winner. Why not?
And the China restrictions, even Lisa said taking out China completely.
Exactly. Lamb has taken the Tim Archer. He took a couple $1 billion hit. And so you're de-risked from China, and the orders just keep flowing.
Ouais, c'est le PEC qui a parlé.
I remember when it was Novellus, it used to be Novellus, was the guy who
À
runs it
8
now,
h
Tim
ce
Archer's
matin,
from
à
the
8h01
Novellus
ce
side.
matin, il y a le PEC qui a annoncé qu'il voyait finalement,
Jim,
ok,
what's tonight?
I have Flutter on. I've been focused on these
il
gambling
voit
stocks
finalement qu'il
because
va avoir un
I think
surplus de
people
pétrole
are
pour Q3.
completely befuddled about what's really going on, particularly what states
C'est pas
and
bon ça
also
en tant que tel.
predictions market.
Pourquoi ça c'est pas bon? Ça
There
veut
are,
dire
I
quoi
mean, I've got a
concrètement? Ça veut
prediction
dire
on
qu'il voit
this
qu'il y a trop de pétrole en
Supreme Court
circulation.
on this tariff thing. I couldn't find one yesterday. 'cause
couldn't find one.
No, and I'm going to go. Well, I didn't study it as much because I'm not a gambler, but I would say that I'm looking for some action on the over on the number of justices that go against the president.
I would think since there are bets about what you and I say next, you can probably find
I'm going to have
the
to look.
Supreme
I mean,
Court.
maybe Jason Robbins from DraftKings. You know, he's just starting out.
Ralentissement d'économie, ça.
The predictions market's very exciting.
Jim, we'll see it six,
Non, c'est pas
busy
nécessairement
day.
cause c'est rendu
Mad Money, 6
économique, ça
p.m.
peut
Eastern
être,
time, with the Dow up 450 now. Delta's
ça
in
peut être
Bastion
aussi à
is here
cause
after the break.
qu'il y a plus de production qui a été faite à l'international. Fait que je lis ça en détail. Je vais aller voir. Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire dans ce cas-là? Si vous avez de la misère à faire ça, c'est que vous allez écrire le latest OPEC statement, puis après vous vous mettez dans le chat GPT, vous demandez de faire un beau petit résumé. Je répète, je suis acheteur sur le Nasdaq. À 50% de mon plein potentiel, ok? Sur le Nasdaq. Je sais pas si ici que ça mord. Je répète, je suis acheteur sur le Nasdaq. Ok, fait en termes de pétrole ici, est-ce que je peux commencer à bailler du pétrole si on répond à la question de Tristan? Ben, perso, non, là, clairement, que cette nouvelle. Tout ce que j'ai expliqué jusqu'à hier sur le pétrole que j'étais bullish, c'est fini, là. Ça a tombé à l'eau, cette affaire-là, ok? Fait que ça a tombé à l'eau pour combien de temps? Puis jusqu'à où? Ça, maintenant, qu'est-ce qu'il va falloir faire? C'est commencer à réévaluer finalement le marché avec des nouveaux éléments. D'où pourquoi je dis que je vais essayer d'aller voir qu'est-ce qui se passe avec les nouvelles de l'OPEC et si je suis capable d'aller lire là-dessus au complet, le document. Ce sera pas bien, non? Checker ça le Dow Jones. Holy fuck! Wouh! Ça monte cette affaire-là.
Je pense que le Nasdaq a trouvé son bottom.
Je répète que vraiment, selon moi, the real big money this morning, c'est Nasdaq. Nasdaq, buy, 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 buy. Press the buy, don't keep it. Don't keep it on the sell side.
Good Wednesday morning. Welcome to Squawk on the Street. I'm Sarah Eisen with Carl Quintanilla. We are live from Post 9, as always, of the New York Stock Exchange. David Faber
Encore une
on
fois, c'est mon
assignment
opinion.
today. Coming up this hour, Delta Airlines CEO
Allez, pas à
Ed
full
Bastian
margin,
will be
là.
with us
C'est
as
jamais bon
shutdown-related
faire ça.
flight cancellations grow and as the company rings the
Vraiment
opening
pas
bell
bon.
here at the New York Stock Exchange to celebrate 100 years in business. Plus, AMD shares jumping this morning after CEO Lisa Su laid out a pretty bullish forecast for growth over the next 5 years. We'll break down her message to shareholders. Stock's up 6%.
Let's begin, though, with some breaking news from the Fed. For that, we'll turn to Steve Leisman on a very busy day for Fed Speak. Hey, Steve.
If you bought, you're making money so
Carl,
far.
good morning. Adding to the busyness here, Atlanta Fed President Raphael
Ok,
Bostic
fait que là,
announcing
chandelle de
he
kick
will
de 1 heure
retire
vient
at
de
the end of his
terminer.
term,
Est-ce que la
February
chandelle ici, c'est une
2026.
chandelle qui est
Remember,
assez
all
rassurante pour
Fed
que j'achète à
presidents'
nouveau
terms
ici à
end,
plus que
at the
50%?
5-year period
Ben,
ending in a 6
non.
or a 1. That
Ok.
is,
En
so
4
they're
heures, par
all
contre,
up
elle est
and
bonne.
Bostic
Fait
taking
qu'il y a
this
deux plays
opportunity
ici.
to
C'est
retire.
soit
He
que je
serves as
rajoute
Atlanta
l'autre
Fed President since
50% supplémentaire, mais
2017.
honnêtement, le
Atlanta Fed
risque
announcing it will form a
est quand même
search
élevé.
committee to look for a
Faudrait que je
replacement. I
couvre
would
tout ça au
say that I
complet.
don't think that
Ou
the,
ma
there's
50%,
his bio
ma
right
deuxième
there.
position, qu'est-ce que je peux
2017
faire?
graduate from Harvard
C'est
in
venir
87,
mettre mon stop ici
PhD
au
from
fil
Stanford in
88. ok?
95, former HUD secretary, former president professor
Ah,
at
ouais.
USC. I don't think the Fed is losing a committed hawk or dove here. Bostic has been very much in the middle. He has also,
ça,
by the way,
le fun d'avoir des
experienced some
commentaires comme
issues
ça des
related
fois.
to his investments. They were
Ça me
found to
rassure de
be
voir qu'il y en a qui écoutent.
not intentional in a series of investigations. Whether or not that would be seen as a potential liability to reappointment, especially in this
OK, fait qu'ici, première slice de buy de 50% initial, deuxième buy de slice que je disais que idéalement je voulais la faire en bas ici. On n'a pas été plus bas. OK? Si j'arrête le reste du marché, on n'a pas l'air d'avoir assez de fuel. Fait qu'il y a deux scénarios ici. Scénario 1, c'est attendre à nouveau qu'on s'en aille plus bas, mais je suis pas sûr qu'on va y aller. Honnêtement, je pense que c'est très unlikely. Puis scénario 2, c'est que j'ouvre 50% de ma position ici, le deuxième 50%. Et ce deuxième 50%-là, ici, je viens le mettre avec un stop loss au flux de 88. Okay? Mais moi, si on me demande qu'est-ce que moi je fais,
But Steve, I think
je
we should
rajoute
draw
pas de
the
position
distinction,
ici.
right? Bostic's replacement will not
Je
be
pense pas que ça en
chosen
vaut
by
la
the
peine.
president. He's a Federal Reserve Bank president, right? It's not like a governor where the president gets to pick who he wants. So yes, this will further
OK, crude oil rapidement, absolute shit close en une heure, OK, un disgusting close qui est justifiable fondamentalement. Fait que maintenant, si on a un rally à la hausse, je vais essayer de short ça, OK, short that puppy.
The board of the directors of the Atlanta Fed will name and nominate and appoint the Atlanta Fed president. However, as you know, these appointments are approved by the Board of Governors every 5 years. So that's the place where Trump appointees and perhaps the president himself through those appointees would get some say.
Si on monte ici à 59,47 avec le retest ici de cette style de wick-là, FIF 23, setup très agressif, mais je vais le regarder.
Usually, as you know, these approvals by the board tend to be perfunctory. They get involved a little bit on the front end, but usually when the board of directors of the individual district bank nominates, the board of governors tends to approve.
Right, exactly. So Myron's position will be up. Fed Chair Powell's chairmanship will be up. We don't know if he's going to stay in his seat or not. That could be
Et
another
belle réaction
one
sur
that
le
the
board, là,
president
je sais pas s'il y en a qui
gets. And then
regardent
this
ça,
will be,
mais on a un
one
petit
for
repli.
the Reserve Bank.
Moi, personnellement,
Is
je
that
suis
what we're
plus sur le
tracking?
repli.
As we reported, Sarah, yes.
Nasdaq, ça pousse.
It may be that the
Je pense qu'on
administration
a un bottom
uses
ici
the
sur le Nasdaq,
Myron seat
honnêtement.
to pick the chair.
Right.
Because then the chair would have a fresh
Nvidia est allé
14-year
weak.
term. I know
Les
it gets
191.
complicated and more about the Federal Reserve
Il y a un
Act than
gros
the
order
average
block ici
investor
qu'on a
needs or
respecté.
wants to know, but that would be
Et
the
Max 7,
explanation
même
if you're
chose, on est allé
interested
weak. Là,
why
c'est capable.
the next chair may be nominated to that Myron position because the Powell
Techniquement, on devrait
position
aller
has
plus haut.
only 2 years left in the 14-year term.
Got it. Steve, thank you. Steve Leisman.
Pleasure.
We're also getting some breaking news on the AI front. Mackenzie Sagales has the story from San Francisco. Mackenzie.
Hey, Sarah. So Anthropic is adding another $50 billion to its AI compute bill, announcing a new build-out of data centers across the U.S., starting in Texas and New York. Now, they're partnering with FluidStack. That's an AI cloud platform behind GPU clusters for Meta, Midjourney, and Mistral. They are known for building custom facilities that can deliver gigawatts of power on short timelines. Those first sites are set to come online in 2026, and it adds to an $11 billion campus that Amazon just built for Anthropic in Indiana, and a new expansion with Google Cloud worth tens of billions of dollars. This is really the clearest sign yet that Anthropic wants to control the physical backbone of AI, not just build the models that run on top of it. The project, it is expected to create more than 3,000 jobs, but the big question is how they are paying for it. Anthropic hasn't said whether debt financing is lined up or if they're dipping into that $13 billion cash pool that they raised in September. And even with their sharper focus on enterprise clients, definitively the more profitable side of AI, they're still not generating enough cash to fund projects of this size. And it comes as tensions are rising between Washington and the AI sector after OpenAI CFO Sarah Fryer floated, then walked back the idea of a federal backstop for that company's $1 trillion plus infrastructure spend, as well as OpenAI's letter to DC asking to expand CHIPS Act credits to help offset compute costs. Guys?
Une ligne de tendance ici.
That's the question. How's it going to get paid for? I mean, there's a lot of debt financing going on. Mackenzie, is that the assumption? I remember that there's also talk that Anthropic is closer to profitability and than, for instance, OpenAI. So maybe investors shouldn't be as worried about that one.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal got access to internal documents from both OpenAI and Anthropic that showed that Anthropic was set to turn a profit in 2028, so in 2 years from now, while OpenAI was going to burn $74 billion that year. But to your point, all of these data center build-outs so far have been structured through debt. You've got Meta structuring its $27 billion build in Louisiana through a joint venture with Blue Owl Capital. Oracle's doing its $38 billion debt package, and then XAI is actually structuring this through a special purpose vehicle where NVIDIA GPUs are being used as collateral and that debt package. So people are really getting creative here. But I mean, the larger question is whether investors are convinced that it's going to pay off, because right now you've got this AI debt showing both sides of the screen. Oracle's credit default swaps, they have spiked in the last week as investors hedge against all this aggressive borrowing.
Marc, je te demandais, tu penses quoi ici de cette trendline là sur le Dow Jones, quand même intéressante là?
Investment in data centers. Guys, big story stood out to me today, and it comes from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who has hinted that there's going to be relief coming. The administration is taking a firmer stand here when it comes to affordability. So Treasury Secretary Bessent saying this morning in a news interview, you're going to see substantial announcements over the next couple of days in terms of things we don't grow here in the United States, coffee being one of them. Bananas, other fruits, so that will bring prices down very quickly. Took note of that because there have been a lot of questions, especially in the wake of some of these elections, like New York City and Virginia and New Jersey. Remember, we asked Kevin Hassett yesterday. I asked him, what was the message from those elections? Because it does feel like, with the president having run on high inflation from the Biden era, prices have not come all the way back down, and those cumulative gains are still hurting Americans, particularly at the grocery store. This is what Hassett said.
People are right that we haven't actually closed the gap. We haven't filled the hole that Biden dug yet. And they're right. If you go to the grocery store, I'm the shopper in my family, and I was looking around at prices of hamburger and milk and everything just this weekend, and they're still way higher than they were when President Trump left office. So that's something that we're working really hard on.
So that was almost a hint as well that they are acknowledging. I mean, yes, they blame it on the Biden administration, but they're acknowledging that these prices are still high. Look at the chart. Coffee prices, for instance. They have been rising over the last few years. And so if you notice that you're paying more for coffee, here's why. And yes, there's supply issues and tariffs and all sorts of problems. But the upshot is we're at just much higher levels. If you broaden it out to food at home from the CPI, which is a good gauge for grocery prices, I mean, look at where we were compared to the COVID era, when we were all stocking up on groceries.
Pas le Dow Jones
This is
ici,
not your imagination.
pas nécessairement non plus, mais clairement que
When you
t'achètes
pay
pas
higher
ici.
groceries, that is what you're feeling. And so I think there's, Carl, the acknowledgement from the Trump administration that this is still a big problem and that they're going to do something about it is notable.
Ouais,
I mean, as you said,
l'or,
they
honnêtement,
started using that
j'ai un peu
word
de la misère à
a lot
suivre de ce temps-ci.
more.
Fait que
There's
c'est pas...
stories on the tape about the
T'inquiète,
president
je vais-
going on a
là-dessus, je suis
tour,
pas...
starting to
Je vais
talk more
carry.
about the economy.
Au
The
niveau pétrole, au niveau des
rebate
indices,
checks is in the
je les
mix.
comprends assez,
So,
très, très, très
we're a
bien
year out
live,
from the
mais
midterms, you
l'or,
might
c'est
expect
pas
something
l'affaire
like
que je
that.
comprends, lui.
Right, and you know, this is the
Parfait.
issue that
Parfait de
he
même.
campaigned on,
Chacun ses
and
forces.
that, you know, he, as businessman, you know, that he wanted to attack. And
Puis,
they've
c'est
certainly done a lot
épeurage.
when it comes to inflation. You've seen it on oil prices.
go.
OK, on
For
a le
instance, you've
Nasdaq
seen
qui a l'air de
progress
vouloir
on the
effectivement
overall
bottom
headline
ici, mais
numbers.
bon.
The problem is they're just stubbornly high, and they have built
Et ça
on
pousse fort,
those
là.
cumulative gains that have happened on the
checker ça.
last few years. The other chart that, you know, a lot of people are paying attention to, and we've been increasingly
Austin
focused on,
trade.
that's related to this conversation,
Austin
is the
trade.
growing wealth gap and the inequality problem that we have. Here's from Bank of America this week that really stood out to me. So the orange line is 2025, where we are now, and it's people living paycheck to paycheck.
Arrête-tu un peu de profit
So
ici sur
obviously,
Nasdaq?
lower
Non.
income, those numbers are way elevated, but they're
No, ça a
but
peine
what's
bougé.
notable here is that it's worse than last year, and it's worse than the year before. On the low income, on the middle income, and kind of the same on the high income, where you just don't see it
Ah,
anymore.
bon,
People
ça l'a
are
pas assez
living
bougé,
paycheck to
le
paycheck. So that
Nasdaq ici,
is
clairement que lui,
also
il peut
part
peut-être
of
pull
the
back,
problem
mais
here,
encore là, tu
along
fais
with
quoi
the
là-dessus?
rising costs of basic goods like
T'as vu, ça,
groceries.
c'est comme... Ça, c'est
almost
l'affaire
a
ici,
complete
là.
reversal of post-COVID, where it was the lower income cohort
Ça, c'est
that saw
la
real
trade,
wage
admettons, que quand
growth
tu vas
gains
commencer à
over
trader, tu vas
higher income.
vouloir prendre
That is
ce que tu vois la
completely flipped.
le
Also
gros
this
rouge.
morning, while we're
Mais
as
ça
we've been
vaut pas la
working,
peine.
subprime auto
À part le top
delinquencies
ici, ça
record
aurait
high.
peut-être
Yeah,
valu la
that's
peine.
something we've been
C'est
watching.
pour ça,
I
c'est la
mean,
limite
we watch
tendance.
for these indicators, but you know, overall,
1600 pips sur
spending is still
l'or.
happening, and even spending at the low income is still happening. There's plenty of data, including from Bank of America today, that shows that the
Et le reading
spending
était
is
excellent,
on,
là.
it's resilient. But we're obviously paying attention to the gap, and we've heard a lot of calls from consumer companies this earnings period about the gap in spending from high income, low income. You've seen it in the restaurant stocks. We'll talk about it with the airlines, with Delta CEO later. That's been a theme.
Right, front of the cabin, back of the cabin. Let's talk more about inflation and the Fed. We just got that news about Bostic planning to retire at the end of his term in February. Joining us this morning here at Post 9 is David Zervos, Chief Market Strategist at Jefferies, and of course a CNBC contributor. Good to see you, David. Welcome.
Good to be here, Carl.
I'm going to guess you're not too worried about the hand wringing about consumer much.
There you go. That's probably what you would think, but I am getting a little worried, believe it or not, and I think I'm tracking the labor market a little bit more closely, and I'm just not liking what I see.
And I think exactement ce que j'avais parlé avant l'ouverture.
Monetary policy is too restrictive and has been too restrictive
on peut aller
for a
beaucoup plus
while,
haut sur l'or, mais l'analyse était spot on.
But more importantly, it's the AI story that you cover every day and the confidence that's kind of shaking. I was
Je
particularly
peux juste
struck
faire
by
un petit recap
the
là.
interview you guys did,
Pendant qu'on
was on the network with Barry Sternlicht, a friend of mine, and sort of point blank kind of saying, I've got this program for $30 a month that makes 15 or 20 people redundant in my firm.
Ce matin, je me suis réveillé, j'ai checké la charte de Gold, OK? On avait fait une grosse impulsion, une grosse jambe haussière, puis on consolidait ici en forme de bull flag, OK? Et j'ai tracé ça, j'ai tracé ma pôle, j'ai tracé ici ma pôle, puis je l'ai dupliqué, je l'ai mis en dessous ici, pour voir où est-ce qu'on pourrait potentiellement aller, OK? Puis ça a donné une zone que j'avais identifiée, une zone intéressante. Et après ça, je suis allé dans un plus petit time frame.
Attends, parce qu'on voit pas ton écran.
Pas pour
I
l'écran?
think the revisions are probably the story of the year in the labor market. We've dismissed the 900,000
Ça, j'étais dans un plus petit time frame, puis j'ai vu que l'ancienne résistance devenait on passait de plus en plus de temps, puis le prix était de plus en plus confortable sur cette résistance-là. Okay? Quand on a eu le retest ici, on a eu le bounce dessus, c'est là que j'ai pris la trade.
Okay, rapidement, ça va pour eux qui
The good side, technological advance. That's always great. The bad side, policy is just not stimulative for demand at a time when the job market's weakened.
Moi, je change rien au Nasdaq ici,
mais
clairement qu'il a l'air d'avoir un petit peu plus de friction.
With
Je sens que le
AI,
Dow
what
Jones
you can
qui a
do
le
with
pullback,
15, 20 people, then easier monetary policy will not
par rapport à ça.
cause a wave of hiring.
But it will stimulate
La seule affaire que je
sectors
pourrais
that are
faire
interest
ici, c'est
sensitive,
soit
berries
sortir
in
ici,
particular,
si
the
on
real
vient juste
estate
briser
sector,
plus bas ici.
and he would love to see reasons why that picks up and he can hire more people potentially.
Well, that's the question.
He could hire more people potentially in the mortgage finance world, maybe in the construction world, in places where the AI isn't going to happen. I don't think we're going to have AI robots banging nails into roofs on houses in Austin, Texas, and Miami, Florida. So let's get the interest rate sensitive sectors moving. Let's get that job creation machine moving.
Avoue que la ligne de tendance sur le Dow Jones est pas rassurante pour l'ensemble des marchés.
We're fighting this inflation battle from the past that really
regarde ça, genre, ça
is really a price level battle. One, it's not an inflation battle, as you said in your opening segment, and we're kind of missing the forest for the trees on the labor market. I'm really optimistic on
est-ce que
the
peut-être
returns
tu
for
pourrais
capital
te
earnings,
hedger
S&Ps,
en sortant genre un autre indice?
and I love that. I'm kind of worried about the swath or the path of creative destruction that all of this productivity is going to leave in the labor market and what that means for more Tuesday.
Je close le Nasdaq. Je close mon Nasdaq à break-even.
I don't feel part of this. And as the Secretary of the Treasury has said, I think the number is something like 88% of all stock value is owned by 10 or 12% of the population.
Je répète, je reste bullish, c'est juste price action, il va attendre un peu.
That's got to change. That people have to feel part of this productivity story. Otherwise, we're going to have a bunch of Luddites burning the machine.
So the Journal did a piece about the political left beginning to push back on the AI build-out.
4180, FIB 61,8, grosse trade, prochain short gold.
This is going to take your water, it's going to jack up your utility bill, and it might put you out of work.
Gold continue de pousser comme s'il y avait plus de dollars, plus de monnaie.
And I think the administration got a notice on Tuesday that it's real, and we're going to see hopefully some pivoting. Hopefully the Fed, remade as you've discussed here with a new governor and a new chair, will get that notice. And I do think folks like Kevin Hassett a real supply sider in the way he thinks, will be sympathetic to the idea that this is supply side driven growth, which really is disinflationary. And it's very important to think about these labor market consequences, which could be negative.
It's so obvious to you, and yet there is real debate inside the Fed right now, and dissenters, and even Fed Chair Powell, I know he was trying to reflect sort of the discussion at the Fed, said that December's not even a certainty.
You know, it doesn't surprise
Dans le
me.
meilleur des mondes, honnêtement, j'aurais laissé les Brothers.
The staff is made up of Keynesians and demand siders.
C'est vraiment le fun que si tu veux, il y a un bouton que tu peux juste closer la moitié de ta position. Rapidement. Close half.
But it's going to be hard to move that Fed. By the way, Greenspan, I think, was really at the forefront of this in the 90s when we had, you know, the productivity miracle, the new paradigm, a lot of supply side thinking. There it wasn't as just job destructive at that time. Even though people talked about it, it didn't end up being that job destructive. This one, this productivity story feels...
Une bonne divergence pour toi.
But are you not at all worried that the bulk of the inflation still is in the services part of the economy, and if they do go easier, there is this fear that they can reignite, I mean, if they stimulate demand, then they reignite the services inflation, which is really what the trouble they got into in the last few years.
I think a lot of that core number is in housing services. A lot of that
Guys, je sais pas si vous vous rappelez, ce matin aussi, j'avais collé le DXY qui était sur une zone de résistance ici, avec la confluence, avec l'alignement sur euro-USD qui avait une divergence ici sur le RSI. J'avais collé que c'était un possible long ici sur l'euro. Perso, je ne l'ai pas pris, mais c'est un super fort. C'est aussi qu'il y avait une divergence sur les 15 minutes du DXY. Tout le monde devrait avoir vu cette divergence-là.
Look, the market never got its inflation-anchored expectations dislodged when we were at 9%. I mean, we had an inverted curve, five-year forwards, in the break-evens, all that stuff just stayed anchored. We all said, this is coming back down, and by and large, it did. We're at 2.5 to 3. A heck of a long way coming down from 9. Sometimes we forget how far it's come down because we get stuck on price level. But I think it's really hard for me to see a worry at the Fed about dislodging anchored inflation expectations when a 9% inflation rate didn't dislodge it in the first place. So is 3 going to dislodge it because we went from 2 3/4 to 3? Seems kind of silly to me. I think, as I've said a number of times,
Ça dépend combien tu veux aller chercher de mouvement, mais je regardais plus la réaction vers les 215, 220. 205 à 225, ouais.
Work its way through the system.
Hassett mentioned as much yesterday that he thought that we were talking to him, and he was saying that he thought it was a little political that they're questioning rate cuts because
I don't think it's helped when you're being called a bonehead. It doesn't exactly foster cooperation.
But his point was, since the last meeting, the only thing that's happened is that inflation has undershot expectations again. So why didn't they keep cutting?
And the labor market data has been extraordinarily bad. I mean, your interview with Stephen, sort of, he said the same thing as well. So I think it's hard for me to understand why Jay pushed back so hard on this last meeting, other than there's still some kind of, you know, there's just some turf battles in the last and final meetings. I mean, his last meeting is he's got 3 or 4 left, something like that. So it's just kind of dig your heels in and fight it out. But the good news is, I think I see brighter rainbows ahead for easier monetary policy into 2026.
David, that was good. Talk soon.
Always a pleasure.
Get a look at our roadmap for the rest of the hour. Delta's chief Ed Bastian's with us. First on CNBC, companies marking 100 years in business. We'll talk about some of the shutdown-related travel problems that have piled up.
Plus, AMD jumping after a bullish forecast from CEO Lisa Su. And we just got news about Anthropic's new massive AI investment. We're going to discuss it all with longtime chips expert Pat Moorhead.
And news just crossing on a big investment from Toyota into a U.S.-based battery plant, even as the future for EVs is a little uncertain. We'll get to that when Squawk on the Street continues.
J'ouvre l'autre 50% de ma position sur le Nasdaq au prix actuel, ok? Même stop loss pour le moment en bas. Un stop loss d'environ 130 points. Mais j'ouvre un autre 50% ici. 130 points, mais qu'est-ce que je vais faire, c'est que je vais ajuster rapidement les stops sur ces positions-là, très rapidement.
That Anthropic will spend $50 billion to build out AI infrastructure nationwide. It's the latest eye-popping number in the AI spending race, and it comes on a big day for another AI name. That's AMD, leading the S&P this morning, 10% gain after the chipmaker projected 35% annual revenue growth and $1 trillion market for AI data centers by 2030. Joining us this morning, Patrick Moorhead, founder and CEO of More Insights and Strategy. Patrick, it's great to have you. I wonder if we can maybe tackle Lisa's forecasts first. The argument's been made that they had prior forecasts that seemed cartoonish at the time and actually ended up being pretty right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The company got re-rated during the big OpenAI deal, and post Financial Analyst Day, we're looking at an average increase of about $11 on that, around $295. So I think the reality check is catching up with the big announcements here, and whether it was the 35% revenue CAGR, the 55 to 58% gross margins, or the 35% operating margins, the street is definitely impressed.
Do you think she deserves to be fielded with questions about accounts receivable and whether or not some of these customers are good for it?
So I think it's a bit unfair, but I think financial analysts need to ask those questions. And I think her and Jensen are getting very similar questions around how is everybody going to pay for that. And that gets to the conversation that I think you and I had when I was in studio a few weeks back, which is all around, is this a bubble? Or is this not? Is this just a beginning of a very large growth cycle?
Although we're obviously increasingly dependent on debt issuance as we've graduated from the cash flow story. How important is that? How worrisome is that?
Bullish, mais je pense pas que c'est le niveau.
Listen, this is what I've been saying for the last 18 months, is that the questions are going to get a lot deeper and a lot stronger and more direct once we go from free cash flow to debt. And we have Oracle, we have Meta, and even Google floating out there. XAI, of course, would do that, and they're even using GPUs as collateral. So yeah, there will be and there should be more scrutiny on the downstream impacts. I do really like that Anthropic is putting up some pretty big numbers. I think it's surprising a lot of people. What I mean by big numbers is big revenue numbers, as they're forecasted, at least in the next 3 years, to be as large as OpenAI. And that is a very good sign. I'm very enthused about Microsoft and the numbers that they're putting up that are not just infrastructure related. It relates to their ability to drive Copilot, ServiceNow, and IBM as well. These are all very good signs.
So you said it deserves more scrutiny on how it's all being funded and what the payoff is. How do you do that when two of the biggest spenders are big private companies?
Yeah, I think the way that's done is them being more direct in how this is going to be funded. I think the interview that Sam Altman had last week really kicked this off, where it was a little bit unclear how this would all be funded, and then the OpenAI CFO gets on and kind of sort of says, "Hey, we would like government funding, but we don't need that," and that's driving a lot of uncertainty in the market. And you tie that in with SoftBank and CoreWeave, and we're in a very cautious overall AI market trade situation.
Right, although the price action might argue otherwise, with AMD up 10 this morning. Maybe
no questions there.
Yeah, at some point we can have a longer discussion about depreciation, which gets into some very deep accounting issues and how much is riding on all of that, Patrick, but we'll save it for next time. Thanks for the help. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Despite an EV sales slowdown, Toyota just out with a big new bet in the space here in the U.S. Those details after a break. And then later on, while an end to the shutdown may be in sight, hundreds of flights have already been delayed or canceled today. This has been an ongoing story. We're going to talk about when we can expect a return to normal travel with the CEO of Delta. And then we'll talk about reports around a staggering new valuation number out of Formula One, as a key figure looks to sell part of his stake. Of course, we are all over that one. Don't go anywhere.
Despite slowing EV sales here in the U.S., Toyota just out with a big new bet on that market. For that, we'll turn to Phil LeBeau. Morning, Phil.
Good morning, Carl. It's a $10 billion bet that Toyota is making when it comes to production here in the United States. A lot of that money will be spent on EV and hybrid production and battery production. And today, the company is beginning production, battery production, at a new plant in Liberty, North Carolina. You might be saying to yourself, wait a second, aren't all the automakers drawing back their investments in terms of what they plan on spending when it comes to EVs in the U.S.? Not necessarily. And this is a perfect example. They're going to be adding another 2,500 jobs at this facility in North Carolina. There are already 2,500 there, 5,100 in all. And as you take a look at the hybrid market, this is why they're making this investment. Toyota dominates when it comes to hybrid sales in the United States. 51% of the hybrids sold in the U.S. are made by Toyota. Now, they import some of those hybrids from Canada, from Japan. What they want to do is to have more of that production here. The RAV4 is a good example. Batteries from this plant will go for RAV4 hybrid production here in the United States. As you take a look at Toyota versus General Motors, the reason we're showing you this over the last year is GM is also in the midst of reassessing how much it wants to spend in terms of battery production and EV production here in the United States. These guys typically don't trade in tandem, but that certainly has been the case, certainly, I would say, over the last month or two, as Toyota, General Motors has caught up with Toyota. Bottom line is this, guys. I know we hear it all the time from people. Oh, nobody's going to be building EVs here in the U.S. Nobody's going to make batteries here in the U.S. That's not true.
Yeah, it's happening. Do they get credit from the administration as well? I guess that they already have sort of the tariff rates are more clear with the trade deal with Japan.
Tariff rates are more clear with Japan. That certainly has helped. And I think, look, like all major companies in Japan, I think they telegraphed with the administration, at some point we're going to be making another big commitment in terms of investment in the United States. And that's what they're doing today, $10 billion. Now, they're not quantifying exactly what that money will be spent on. Will it be more production in terms of final assembly? Will it be with batteries? They're not saying that at this point, but they are, without a doubt, trying to increase their footprint here in the US.
Well, they won't pay tariffs if the batteries are made here. Thank you, Phil. Phil LeBeau. Time now for news update. Tom Chu has it for us this morning. Hi, Tom.
Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Carl. House Democrats released emails from the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein referencing President Trump. In the messages, Epstein wrote Trump spent hours with one of Epstein's victims. The president has repeatedly denied any involvement or knowledge of Epstein's sex trafficking operations. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee say the emails, which were picked from thousands of pages of documents, raised new questions about their relationship.
Vraiment le fun là, comme trade. Je peux vous montrer les zones que j'avais identifiées. C'était sur le daily. Sur le daily, vous voyez sur mon écran, si je fais ça, c'est mieux. Si je rétrécis ça, ça va être plus zoomé. Hein. Ah, c'est mieux comme ça. Sur le daily du Nasdaq, et ce que j'avais identifié dans mes rectangles, c'est ces 3 wicks-là. Okay? Ces 3 wicks-là, cette zone-là est importante. Et là, si on ferme la daily au-dessus de cette zone-là, on devrait techniquement aller chercher les 220, OK? Autour de aller retravailler ici, OK? Et c'est juste le technique qui me dit ça, c'est pas le fondamental ou quoi que ce soit, c'est juste que c'est comme monter des escaliers, tu sais. Tu passes la première marche, là, tu as la deuxième marche. Okay? Regardez comme de fait cette zone qui va identifier précisément sur le top de cette wick-là. Si je regarde, je vais mettre un petit time frame. Okay. On vient de faire, regardez ce qu'on vient de faire ce matin. Vraiment du petit time frame pour que vous voyez bien comment on respecte cette zone. Vous voyez ici? It make this shit up, okay? Bon, au 161, on est descendu à 160, ok? Fait qu'au $1 près, on respecte cette zone. Moi, perso, je ne suis pas rentré ici parce que j'ai eu une super avant-midi, puis ça va être ça. Même si je pensais que j'avais, avec la pôle du flag, on va aller chercher les 200, 220 là, d'après moi. Là. Et je sais pas si ça va se faire sur la session de New York, ça va peut-être être les Asiatiques qui vont pousser ça. Mais juste pour vous montrer comment j'ai identifié mes zones sur le daily, parce que c'est ça qui m'a permis de de comprendre que, OK, on travaillait cette zone-là, on la rejetait pas, OK? Et d'un coup que j'ai vu cette tendance ici, qui était bullish, faisait des hauts plus hauts, des bas plus hauts, OK? Je suis rentré ici, là, juste avant la hausse. Did I get lucky? Peut-être, mais j'ai été avec le pattern, OK? J'ai été avec l'analyse technique. Je me suis pas laissé influencer par rien d'autre, OK? Fait que, close shop pour moi aujourd'hui. Je vais me déconnecter, guys. J'espère que ça a été utile puis intéressant. Comme vous montrer le thinking sur code. Alright.
Thank you, Alexis.
Salut tout le monde. Salut Marc. On se reparle tantôt.
Bien sûr. Moi, je vais encore rester un petit peu. Il y a un petit dernier setup que je vois qui pourrait être intéressant. C'est le même setup que tantôt, c'est juste qu'il a l'air de vouloir se faire peut-être finalement. Fait que je vais juste le représenter nous. C'est le Nasdaq ici en achat. Ici. Alentour d'ici de 25 400. Je pense que c'est toujours quelque chose d'intéressant si on se rend là.
Welcome back. Airlines warning that shutdown-related flight delays and cancellations will continue 2 weeks ahead of the busiest travel day for Thanksgiving. Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian joins us here at Post 9, first on CNBC. The company ringing the opening bell this morning to celebrate 100 years in business. First U.S. airline to reach that milestone. Congrats on that, Ed.
Thank
it's
you,
good
sir.
to have you.
It's good
and
to
good
be
to see
with you
you.
guys.
So how bad is it right now in terms of disruptions from shutdown?
The last week's been tough. At Delta, we had over 2,000 cancellations from last Friday when we were mandated to start pulling our schedule down, and then we had some pretty serious ATC shortages on staffing right through the weekend. To give you a sense for the impact, Saturday afternoon we had a little thunderstorm come through Atlanta. The actual tower in Atlanta reduced the arrival rates down to 20 per hour. That's like a heavy snowstorm.
Why?
So
What's normal?
Because of staffing. I mean, they were at such a low level of staffing. So normal time for that part of the day would be 80 an hour, down to 20. So that's what's driving a lot of the cancellations. Everything's slowed. Yesterday was a much better day. Today is started off well. Hopefully the vote occurs tonight and we get everybody back. We get people paid, most importantly. And by the weekend, I think things should be in good shape.
You mean if it ends today? Back to normal by the weekend, do you think?
I think you'll be back to normal, as close to normal as you can get by Friday, Saturday, yeah.
What's the problem? Is it that people aren't coming into work and air traffic control?
Well, the problem is two things. One, we've had these mandated reductions. And when you start pulling reductions out without any advance notice, it just causes ripples of effect. And it's across the industry, not just Delta, obviously. And second, we've had some serious shortages in terms of staffing levels. Quite a few of the zones were not staffed anywhere close to what they normally are, which caused us to cancel even greater flights. While we had a 6% cancellation rate, I think yesterday was the required rate. The industry through the weekend was actually running 10%.
Did the industry have a problem with the mandated reductions, or do you think there was a legitimate enough safety risk that you had to do it?
Well, there was no question there was a safety risk, and while we didn't like it, we supported the FAA and we supported Secretary Duffy that we had to take proactive action. The thing we don't like is being a political football, because our people aren't getting paid. That's the thing we really didn't like. When you ask the controllers, when you ask the security agents at TSA, who form essential roles in the safety and the safeguarding of our air travel system, national airspace, if they're not going to get paid for a month and a half, that's unacceptable. And that's what we really didn't like. So if this was the cause to bring people back together, to get the shutdown over with, so be it, but hopefully we don't have to go through
How do we
this again.
prevent that in the future?
The best way to prevent it, and I don't think it's in the bill, was to ensure those workers, next time this happens, because it will happen, get paid. And how, who could disagree with that? Who could disagree with that?
Just change their qualifications as essential, and they have to get paid like the military gets paid.
They are essential.
Yeah, they are.
Essential.
No, they are.
They are essential.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the thing we've seen through this last week, is how essential air service is, period. It's what brings the nation back into work. It's our product, but also those controllers and the security agents, and other people at the FAA as well.
how do you think about the economic cost of loss of travel and trips and maybe people's plans, and does it snap right back, or is it gone?
No, those monies will be gone. I mean, yes, you have people deferring trips that will take trips, but fundamentally that's gone. We had 2,500 cancellations, for the last week, which is a crazy amount. It's going to cost Delta a significant amount. It'll cost the other airlines. We'll still have a strong quarter. Delta, it won't wipe out our profits by any means. And it's too early. It's premature to estimate, because I want to see it done first and see how quickly we can get back. But it'll have an impact across the economy.
What's the old line? An airline seat's like a grapefruit. If you don't use it, it's gone. Right?
Exactly.
It literally
it wastes.
Right.
That's exactly right.
What is the capacity outlook for next year? And is it in any way a reflection of how you think the consumer is going to behave?
Well, we're expecting to grow at a GDP plus maybe 1% rate for us, which is kind of our normal rate. That's a healthy rate. The industry collectively, particularly in the U.S., is having some challenges at the lower end of the market, the lower end.
Bon, Nasdaq, pour répondre aux questions, Nasdaq, je pense toujours que ça va monter, je suis juste pas sûr si ça doit baisser encore un petit peu plus. C'est pour ça que je suis le sideline actuellement, j'attends. Les deux niveaux que je vois, effectivement, sur le 4 heures ici, honnêtement, c'est une belle zone. Mais, ce niveau-là ici, quand même, semble encore probable.
Any change in behavior
Je vais rester aussi
your
longtemps.
consumers or your corporate business travelers?
Je vais rester aussi longtemps que je ne pas mon play final là-dessus. Dès que je vais avoir fait mon play final, je vais me positionner, je vais quitter la préparation. Je pense qu'il y a un petit peu plus d'argent à aller chercher ce matin ici sur le Nasdaq.
Businesses are going double digits year-on-year improvements, and then you run into the shutdown and everybody says, well, hold up. That's why I think, and I know this holiday season is going to be a strong season. Businesses are going to get back on the road here soon as they feel comfort that there's clarity in the sky.
You did get more constructive in the last couple of quarters, but you never got back to the original guidance with which you came into the year. Did you ever think there was a chance to get back there?
No. That's why we pulled guidance. I mean, we had, when you have the uncertainty that we see in economic confidence, and you saw in GDP, we're a GDP-driven business. When GDP for the first quarter drops 3 points over a very short period of time, that tells you consumer confidence was shaken. And there was a freeze. The economy thawed out. Confidence started to return once these trade deals started to happen, and people had confidence where this whole thing was headed. That's when people needed to get back out on the road.
Last time I saw you, Ed, we were in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia.
We meet in fancy places.
At the FII conference, you made a big announcement there that you are expanding and going to have a direct flight.
Yeah, we're launching next year direct service from Atlanta to Riyadh. We're excited about that. Anyone who has been to Riyadh realizes it's an amazing opportunity. I know everyone talks about going to Davos. We're both at FII. That's where actual action happens.
A lot of deal making.
That's where the deals are, and I was happy to be there and have a chance to speak there.
How are you sort of choosing where the new routes are, and as you expand, internationally, how do you pick new markets?
International expansion is really the second century of flight. We turned 100, as you mentioned, but for the second century, it's international. I tell people this stat people get amazed at. Only 1 in 5 people in the world have ever stepped foot on an airplane. You think about that, only 1 in 5. Wow. We're a growth business, and our growth is going to be international, so we're looking to go back into India, into the Middle East with Saudi Arabia, more in Africa, South Pacific, Asia, Latin America, South America. There's so many places, and that's going to be the growth story for the second century.
And that's intra-country, in other words, right? Not just U.S. to those countries.
No, it'll always be U.S. to those countries. Those are the rates we hold. Right. But that's where you want to go, because you have the strong economic power here in the year. People want to come to the U.S. We want to bring people go abroad, and that's where markets occur. That's how commerce grows, and that's how communities start to form.
Have the competitive dynamics in your industry within premium changed? You know, the partnership with United and JetBlue, for instance, in New York. Has it gotten tougher to compete?
We're doing great. You know, we're not doing partnerships with other airlines. We're doing partnerships with Uber. We got an exclusive partnership. I'll be back here this afternoon with Dara, and he invited me on his closing bell this afternoon. So I'll be on the platform tonight. Might say record day, twice in one day, exactly. And we've got meetings we're holding here in New York.
Oui, il n'y a pas grand-chose ce matin d'intéressant ici. C'est vraiment, c'est très lightweight en tant que tel.
YouTube's now on Delta, and with our free Wi-Fi systems, and YouTube TV is going to be coming soon. Or Starbucks, there's so many other great partners. DraftKings is a new partner. And these are also exclusive relationships. The ecosystem continues to grow and it continues to build, and Delta is at the core. Travel is at the core of all of that happening.
Why is this? Is it about building brand?
It's about people wanting to draft off of our brand, our massive consumer reach, and opportunities, because there's natural alignment. So the most important resource for Uber in terms of travel is airports. And so they want to have a relationship, a premium relationship with Delta. You find the same thing going on, again, whether it's YouTube TV, they want that exposure. We have 200 million people a year that we carry, and then they're with us on average for about 3 hours, and they're even seatbelted in. They can't do anything, and they're looking for something to do, right? What better platform is there than to create that platform and that marketplace for them?
And we're going to be okay for Thanksgiving?
We're going to be okay.
A lot of worry about that. We're going to be That's a busy.
We're going to be okay. The bookings look good, and we'll be back this weekend. As I said, pending the vote, we got to get the vote done, and so we're counting on Congress doing their job and making that happen. But Thanksgiving will be fine.
All right, Ed. Good to see you. Thank you for the update. Ed Bastian celebrating 100 years of Delta. Hard to believe.
We'll see you later on.
Absolutely.
Still to come this morning, what executives at On Running said about the holiday season that got the street bullish today. 21% gains today. It's moving some other sneaker makers as well. And we're just one day away from CNBC's Delivering Alpha Summit here in New York City, where the street's top investors will share where they see markets headed, how they're putting money to work. You can scan this QR code to register or just visit cnbcevents.com/Delivering Alpha.
You don't want to miss this.
Haven't you heard? I'm the Wicked Witch of the West.
Rated PG. Buy the dip with CNBC Pro's Best Deal of the Year. Market-moving news and interviews across 3 global live streams. Subscriber-only content from Wall Street pros like Josh Brown.
If you love the stock market as much as I do, you're going to love the best stocks in the market list.
Plus exclusive live events.
This is my first time at the stock exchange, and it's been awesome.
To be on the floor, I just can't believe I'm here.
Go pro with the Best Deal of the Year at cnbc.com/Pro Black Friday. Terms and restrictions apply. Get exclusive reporting and data on high net worth investors.
Today's wealthy invest differently. It's not just about stocks and bonds, but also real estate, classic cars, and fine.
Selon moi, le meilleur play pour le reste de la journée, ça reste bullish Nasdaq. Je pense qu'on va avoir des buyers qui vont entrer. Ils sont pas encore là. Le CAC 40, des fois, si je traite ça, très rarement le CAC 40. Les heures d'ouverture sont vraiment bizarres. Les spreads sont élevés, tout ça. Mais oui, ça m'arrive des fois.
He teaches how to invest versus just what trades to make.
CAC 40, des questions, j'étais aux États-Unis. Avec $2000, je comprends pas trop pourquoi il faudrait que je sois aux États-Unis pour acheter. Je peux au Canada pour acheter des affaires.
Curriculum of career and income boosting online courses to help you become smarter. Take the first step towards success today. Go to cnbcmakeit.com/courses to learn more.
Je l'ai checké tantôt. Mais Gold, honnêtement, j'ai un peu de la misère à comprendre pourquoi il explose autant que ça depuis 2 jours. Fait que c'est pour ça que je sais de pas trop y toucher, je comprends pas. Il y a plein de belles opportunités à d'autres places. Comme les indices boursiers, ça fait une semaine que pas mal nailed. C'est pour ça que je me concentre plus là-dessus.
Over 30 minutes here into the hour, some movers we are watching. Bank stocks get a boost this morning with Goldman Sachs leading this push higher in the Dow. Goldman hitting a record high today for the first time since September. Shares of business payments firm Bill Holdings popping on a report they're exploring a sale following pressure from activist investor Starboard Value, which held an 8.5% stake in the name as of early September. And then on running shares gaining traction after raising guidance for a third time in a row. Following a top and bottom line beat from the retailer, executives there saying they don't plan to offer any discounts this holiday season. We're going to talk to the CEO about it next hour on Money Movers, but the stock is up 20% right now.
Still to come this hour after the break, staggering new numbers coming out of Formula One today amid this FT report says a key player is looking to sell part of his stake in Mercedes. Later on, the CEO of Ray J's with us, his read on the markets, how AI is changing the business when we're back in a moment.
Trend Tracker is sponsored by CME Group. CME Group, where risk meets opportunity.
Mais là... c'est ça que je suis en train de checker, là. Il y a genre ça. Attends, je suis en train de vérifier, ça a l'air correct. Short. Non, je sais, aussi.
Welcome back to Squawk on the Street. Some potential news around Formula One today. Mercedes CEO Toto Wolff reportedly in talks to sell about 5% of his stake in the team at a record-breaking $6 billion valuation, according to the Financial Times, the highest for any Formula One team ever. And the reported buyer, according to the FT, CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz, whose company already sponsors the team. Reports say the deal would involve Kurtz joining Wolff's holding company that owns a third of the team. The important takeaway here, Carl, is just how much success, commercial success, Formula One teams have had since Liberty Media took over the league a few years ago. Formula One teams were never profitable, and they were never worth more than, billions of dollars under old school management and leadership like Bernie Ecclestone. What happened was a series of moves, which we explored in this documentary, as you can see, me taking the hot lap, it's called, with Toto Wolff in the driver's seat in the documentary Inside Track, is they put in place a cost cap. That was a key marker in terms of the profitability of the teams. What that meant is that teams couldn't spend more than a certain amount, and the goal was to try to make it more competitive, so it wasn't always one team dominating. You know, just pouring, Ferrari would just spend the most money and never be profitable, and then they would just dominate. Now there's a cost cap, and it's allowed the profitability of these teams to increase, the sponsors that they've brought in, multi-billion-dollar valuations.
Yeah, that would put you on par with some very large NBA teams.
Exactly.
At that valuation. After the break, the latest out of Washington in the timeline on a possible vote tonight to end this shutdown when Money Movers begins. Good Wednesday morning. Welcome to Money Movers. I'm Carl Quintanilla with Sarah Eisen here at Post 9 of the New York Stock Exchange. As Wall Street anticipates the end to the longest ever government shutdown, we're joined by the CEO of Raymond James, who says that while he remains cautious near term, this bull market has more room to run.
Plus, on holding shares surging as it raises guidance for the third straight quarter. Shoemaker also saying it will not turn to Black Friday promotions to boost demand this year. The company CEO is with us this hour.
And AI's growing power bottleneck. We're joined by a Morgan Stanley analyst who warns the U.S. is facing a power shortfall of as much as 20% for data centers through 2028.
Right now in the markets, the S&P is pretty much unchanged, and you've got a split in terms of performance of groups today. Healthcare is actually the leader. Healthcare and banks, financials doing really well, up more than 1%. Materials, industrials, and staples are all higher, but technology is lagging. The Nasdaq's down about 0.5%, and that's why you have the overall index lower. The bond market opens today. It was closed yesterday for Veterans Day, and there's a bid, and we're seeing the 10-year yield below that 4.1 level, just around 4%. Maybe some talk that there's reaction to those weaker ADP numbers that were out yesterday on the jobs front. We'll start with two stories out of Washington. Emily Wilkins covering the upcoming House vote aimed at ending the government shutdown. Eamon Javers looking ahead to a dinner hosted by the president tonight, reportedly with some high-profile Wall Street leaders. Emily, we'll start with you in this forthcoming House vote. Everybody is waiting. Is this the end?
Sarah, today is day 43 of the government shutdown, and it is very likely the last day. House lawmakers, they're back in town. They're going to start voting this afternoon to reopen the government with a final vote set for early evening, maybe around 7 o'clock. Majority Leader Steve Scalise, who was on CNBC just a little bit earlier today, laying out his expectations for this vote.
We've been trying to end the shutdown for over a month now, and look, I think some Democrats still want to play games and inflict pain on families across America, but we've got enough, luckily, 8 in the Senate. You know, we may get a few more than that in the House who want to end this madness and just let people get back to their lives.
Before the vote, Speaker Mike Johnson will be swearing in at Alita Grijalva. She's a Democrat who won an Arizona special election in September, but has yet to be sworn in because the House has not been in session since mid-September. Today's really their first day back. Once the government is reopened, as we expect it to be when folks wake up tomorrow, we are expecting it to take a few days before things like back paychecks hit the accounts of federal workers who, again, haven't gotten a paycheck during the shutdown. We also are expecting to get a backlog of federal data, but because those employees who were collecting the information on jobs and prices were furloughed for at least part of the shutdown, we know that some reports could be delayed or rely on data collected after the fact. So we're expecting to get some more details on exactly what that will look like from BLS once the government reopens. Guys?
And we just heard from Ed Bastian, the CEO of Delta. He thinks that if it ends today, then we could be back to normal travel this weekend, which I think a lot of people would be very, very happy to hear. So what happens to the Democratic Party, which is pretty sharply divided here on how this was handled?
I mean, Sarah, I think one of the interesting things that's going to be to watch is that for the Democrats who flipped, who voted with Republicans to reopen the government, they did so because they believe that there is a deal to be had on these Affordable Care Act tax credits. Now, that is going to be an uphill climb, but we know that Thune promised them a vote in mid-December about it. We know that's something insurance and healthcare industry is watching closely. So I think the question is going to be, what do Democrats come up with their Republican colleagues in the next 4 weeks? And is there any way that that can not only get the votes to pass the Senate, but pass the House, which would be a much steeper climb? So I think that's going to be the big game and the big question for the next month. If they're able to do that, then I think Democrats are going to feel a little bit more united. Otherwise, we've got midterms coming up, and we've got folks from all different corners of the party who are running. So this is definitely going to be a developing story from now until the midterms.
Yeah, trying to keep pace with that and all the shifting winds regarding redistricting, which is also a huge story going into next year, Emily. Thanks, Emily Wilkins. Let's turn to the White House as well, where the president, as Sarah said, will expected to host some high-profile Wall Street leaders for dinner tonight. For that, we'll turn to Eamon Javers. Morning, Eamon.
Yeah, good morning to you, Carl. We are expecting those heavy hitters here at the White House, but the White House is not really offering any detail on this dinner tonight other than that they are hosting it with financial leaders from across the economy. No explanation from the White House sort of why they're doing this now, what particularly is on the agenda, but take a look at this list of some of the heavy hitters that we do expect reportedly to be there, including the CEOs of JP Morgan, the NASDAQ, Blackstone, Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, and Goldman Sachs. All of those leaders are expected to be here tonight, and this dinner comes at a time when the president is increasingly thinking about the issue of affordability, telling Fox News in an interview yesterday that he is prepared to lower some tariffs in order to make some products more affordable for Americans. Here's what he said.
We're going to lower some tariffs. We're going to have some coffee come in. We're going to take care of all this stuff very quickly, very easily. It's surgical. It's beautiful to watch. But our costs are way lower.
Now, we do expect some cameras to be allowed into this dinner tonight with the Wall Street executives, guys. So at least some portion of this will be visible to the public. We'll see who's there, and we'll see what the president has to say to them. Back over to you.
I'm just wondering what, topics of conversation. It's interesting. The banks are really rallying today, and I wonder if it has something to do with this. the FaceTime just getting from the president. Overall, banks have been, I would think, like pretty happy with the administration's policy, especially when deregulation, much of it does center on the Treasury Secretary and on banking.
Yeah, I mean, look, things have been good for Wall Street recently, and I know that the Wall Street CEOs value the FaceTime with the president. A lot of them will tell you, you know, behind the scenes, the key is to get into the Oval Office with the president, to talk to him one-on-one about any issues that are coming up. So this is a perfect opportunity for folks on the street to come here to the White House. And, you know, sort of have that one-on-one time with the president to raise any issues that they see in the economy going forward, talk a little bit about tariffs and the impact thereof, and get a sense from the administration about where things are going next.
Okay, Eamon, thank you. Eamon Javers, Goldman Sachs, up more than 3%. For more on the market, as we await the House vote today on a bill that could end the shutdown, let's bring in Raymond James CEO Paul Shoukry. It's great to have you, Paul. Welcome.
Yeah, great to be here on the NYSE.
Yeah, so how are you feeling about the overall market these days? We're sort of waiting for the end of the shutdown, waiting to see about the AI trade after last week was a little bit bumpy. Where do you think things stand?
Yeah, I mean, there's always uncertainty, and so, you know, the markets, the Dow finished at a record high yesterday, and so we're optimistic about the economy long term. As we look into next year, we think lower rates and tax cuts will be a tailwind, so we're looking at 2% GDP growth, and yeah, we're very optimistic about the economy and the markets going forward.
I mean, this is sort of your sector. We were just talking about some of these bank CEOs going to Washington to dine with the president. What do you think the message from Wall Street should be?
Yeah, it's not too late to invite me. I could still fly to D.C. after this, but yeah, I'm not sure what
someone's watching.
Yeah, not sure what the message is going to be, frankly, but I know we're all waiting for more on deregulation and more balanced regulation for the industry.
Is it happening yet, the deregulation?
There's a lot of guidance coming out and a lot of speculation around it, but in terms of real rule changes, we haven't seen anything just yet. But it's still early, you know, in the grand scheme of things.
What do you want to see?
Well, you know, some of the regulations post the recession that impacted banks for the asset thresholds, for example, they haven't even been indexed to inflation. So some of those rules that can be indexed to inflation, we're at $80 billion at Raymond James of assets. There's a whole new set of rules that happen at $100 billion. That $100 billion threshold was established, you know, over a decade ago, and so having some adjustments for that just to be indexed for inflation would be a great relief for us, for example.
So, I mean, overall, the market, the environment, the operating environment, what's been happening to assets? The stock has done very well over the last few years.
Yeah, well, we released earnings for our fiscal year two weeks ago. We finished with record client assets of $1.7 trillion. Revenues were up 10% from last year's record to just over $14 billion for the fiscal year. Consumer sentiment is very strong. Exposure to the equity markets is, you know, near all-time high. Now, we don't have the volatility that the e-brokers have. We're a financial planning organization, so it's been relatively stable. But the engagement in the equity markets is strong, and client sentiment and client satisfaction with their financial advisors is near all-time high.
Are you on the lookout for spreads to start acting a little bit weird?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more spread volatility. I mean, we're almost near a multi-decade tight spread environment now, and that's pretty unusual. We were just meeting with our corporate bond trading team actually downtown last night that joined the Raymond James family 3 or 4 years ago, and it's a tough environment given how tight spreads have been and how low volatility
Mon prochain target, c'est sur le Nasdaq. Moi, je pense qu'on pourrait commencer à avoir quelques buyers qui rentrent en circulation. Ça va être ici. 3,99 environ 400.
I mean, I'm just trying to think, what kinds of catalysts would you imagine might widen that?
Just natural volatility around, you know, we had some rumors come out, or some issues come out in the loan markets, fraud related a few weeks ago. Raymond James wasn't involved in those particular loans, but that created some near-term spread volatility. So, you know, the credit environment has been near record, good credit levels over the last 15 years. And it's not going to be a surprise to me over the next 5 to 10 years if we see more credit issues, which banks reserve for. I mean, we expect it, we price it out.
Yeah, we keep asking, where's the cycle?
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, we don't try to time it. We make decisions over the next 5 to 10 years, and so we're not trying to time the cycle, but cycles will come, and we all know that, and we just don't know when it will come.
What's the level of bullishness from your clients? I think you said they were very happy and engaged in the market, but how does it look relative to some of the other periods where market was near the highs?
Yeah, we had a great financial advisor dinner last night with 200 advisors, and I've asked all of them, what are you hearing from your clients? I spend about 80% of my time traveling and asking advisors, what are you hearing from your clients? And overall, it's very positive. You know, despite the headlines around tariffs and government shutdown, clients are looking through that. They have a long-term financial plan in place. A lot of it is fee-based assets that are being rebalanced as the equity markets shoot up. They trim a little bit into fixed income. Within fixed income, there is some duration that is being taken now with the anticipation of lower short-term rates. So people are trying to fix some portion of their fixed income portfolios, but overall the sentiment is positive.
Are there interesting demographic evolutions right now regarding the younger cohort, or maybe that versus, there's a nice piece in The Economist today about people over 70 and how much risk they're taking because they've done so well sitting on assets for decades now.
Yeah, well, we really see across the industry, because at Raymond James, we're really focused on higher net worth individuals, which on average are a little bit older. But when you look at the e-brokers, there is higher risk taking and even maybe higher level of return expectation that some of the younger generation has. I was with an advisor last night at dinner. He said he played golf with his friend and his son. And the friend's son, who was around 25 to 30 years old, he said, you know, the power of compounding can really work to your favor at your age. If you can earn 8 to 10% a year over the next several decades, he goes, 8 to 10% a year? I earn 8 to 10% a week. And so those expectations probably need to be calibrated over time. And so, again, we don't see it in our system because we're not dealing with a lot of younger. I mean, some of these e-brokers have clients with $3,000 average account size, and they're investing in option contracts.
Yeah, single day.
And sports betting contracts, whatever they're calling them now, but it's sports betting. And that's not what we engage in Raymond James. But over time, we're hoping that those clients have more, you know, aligned expectations with what return performance really looks like over a long period of time.
So you said what, 1.8 billion in assets according to the latest?
1.7 trillion of client assets.
Trillion. So what is the growth plan? Is it because we've seen a lot of sort of consolidation in the broker-dealer business and recruiting advisor teams. Is that how you will continue to grow?
Yeah, all of the above. We're a growth-oriented firm. Last year, we had record recruiting results, recruiting advisors that had $421 million at their prior firms, which is up 21% from the prior year record. And the retention of advisors continues to be good, but we also are looking for acquisitions. We have over $2.5 billion of excess capital and cash, and so we are looking for acquisitions in the space that are first a good cultural fit, but also a good strategic fit, and it obviously has to make financial sense for both us and the sellers.
Can I ask the requisite technology, AI, efficiency, effect on headcount in the years going forward?
Yeah, our philosophy is we want to use AI and technology to do more with the same number of people. We're still planning and budgeting to grow our headcount next year, but we are using AI across the back office, middle office, and front office to gain more efficiency. So we are able to generate more productivity and efficiency with the use of technology.
Why do you need a human financial advisor? Why can't an AI agent do the job?
Yeah, our belief is that AI will actually improve and increase human and personal relationships. And so as you have complexity in your lives, we saw it during the COVID pandemic. A lot of people were doing things on their own. And then when you have a global health pandemic, you say, you know what, I need to speak to a professional who can actually help me navigate these decisions, help me not make emotional knee-jerk decisions. I mean, one of the things I'm most proud of as I look back at the last year is after Liberation Day, when a lot of people were doing it on their own, they were selling out. Our advisors were helping their clients rebalance and actually invest more into equities. So instead of locking in their losses, they actually were able to participate in the upside after Liberation Day.
Yeah, it's different saying you got to get in when a chatbot says it versus a human being, right?
Yeah, or getting an email from a robo-advisor saying, do not panic. We will call you back as soon as our lines open up. So they want to speak to a human financial advisor that really knows them deeply, has personal relationships with them, knows their family, knows their children, knows what their long-term objectives are to help them navigate things during challenging times.
All right, Paul, thank you for joining us. Really
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. Paul Shukri, the CEO of Raymond James.
Appreciate it.
When we come back this hour, CEO of sneaker company On's with us, raising guidance for the third quarter in a row, looking to turn around a stock that had lost about a third of its value this year coming in today, but today, as you can see, up 19%.
Plus, Morgan Stanley with some new numbers surrounding what they call a major bottleneck for data center growth. The author behind that report is going to join us to explain. Don't go anywhere.
Pardon. Bon, ça va être terminé pour moi ce matin. Je suis vraiment, j'ai le goût d'acheter le Nasdaq, mais je vois juste pas de setup, honnêtement, qui sont légendaires. Fait, je vais me retenir, je vais attendre un peu. Je vais faire un update dans le groupe tantôt sur qu'est-ce que je vois. Clairement qu'il y a une opportunité de buying qui s'en vient dans pas long. On est peut-être là dans pas long, mais il manque encore quelques confirmations. En gros, qu'est-ce qui me fait croire qu'on n'est pas loin, c'est que la divergence ici en 5 minutes est quand même assez flagrante. La seule affaire que je me questionne, c'est est-ce qu'on peut baisser jusqu'à ici ou on choke, puis on fait croire qu'on s'en va plus bas, puis on en remonte juste avant. C'est plus ça actuellement mon questionnement par rapport au price action qu'on a là. Un heure de limite là-dessus? Une heure de limite là-dessus? Ouais, ça pourrait faire du sens. La seule affaire que je trouve qui serait plate, c'est que d'après moi, il y a des bonnes chances que le prix commence à remonter à partir d'ici, qu'on se rende pas ici. Okay? Mais tu sais, tantôt, j'en ai essayé, en tout cas, personnellement, j'ai essayé 2 fois d'acheter le Nasdaq. Les 2 fois, ça a pas mal été des break-even. J'aurais tendance à dire sinon, peut-être que je reprends un autre 50% ici à nouveau comme tantôt, puis maintenant, j'attends pour prendre un autre 50% plus bas.
Welcome back. Take a look at shares of On, the sportswear company surging after reporting this beat on the top and the bottom line in Q3, raising guidance into year-end, reporting some strong demand in the U.S. despite some price increases and signaling no plans for any Black Friday discounts. Joining us this morning in a first on CNBC interview is CEO Martin Hoffman. Martin, so much to get to. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Does this quarter reflect some kind of an inflection point with the consumer?
I mean, it has been an absolutely amazing quarter with close to 35% constant currency growth. But what it really shows is the strategy that we are having. And this is a strategy of building the most premium global sportswear brand. So what we are doing here is we are really setting ourselves apart from the other players in the sportswear industry by really curating a feeling for our customers that they are having towards a premium brand.
Non, je vais arrêter ça là. Je veux pas forcer les choses. Je pense qu'il y a un setup qui s'en vient. Faut que j'aie de patience. C'est pas là pour le moment. Ça va être tout pour ce matin.
But then also, how do we show up at our events? What are the amazing athletes that we are working with, the cultural influencers that we are working with?